Alright everyone, this is going to be part 2 of the series of how to set up your grid. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to log into the server. We've already set up MySQL and all the goodies. Now you've got to prepare everything for Opensim. The first thing you're going to need to do is increase your max packet allowed size. So what you need to do is you go into Start Bar, MariaDB, and you'll find the my.ini file. Now this little bit of line right here is not going to be in your file. It's going to look like this. But what you need to do is you need to put a space there just before the bracket client and paste max underscore allowed underscore packet equals, and there you define your max packet. Now I put 998 megabytes in there. Once you do that, you just save it, of course, and you can just restart your MySQL, or just restart the server, which will in turn restart the services, and it'll fetch the new info from the note card, and yeah, it'll all work. So once that's done, you're pretty much ready to install. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to opensimulator.org. Okay, and we're going to download the latest Opensim right there. So while it's downloading, we've already got one on there, so it's going to show 2. So we're going to go to our downloads folder, and we're going to find that here. Now I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it into the tutorial folder, which is located on the C drive. I'm just doing this for instructional purposes. So we're going to paste here, and let's extract a copy of it to its own folder here. I'm going to delete this because we don't need that anymore. I'll go inside of here, and we'll go inside of here, and I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, and that'll replace the original file with this one. Now we're ready to start setup. So basically everything you need to set up and do is, let's get rid of this because that's a copy of it. This is the basic file. So everything is inside of the bin here. Okay. Inside the bin, we're going to start with robust setup. Okay. So I like hypergrid enabled, but some people don't. But the cool thing about this settings in hypergrid HG is you can actually restrict hypergrid altogether, or only allow certain members of your grid to be able to leave or jump or come in, for that matter. Or you can specify a certain grid to be able to come in and nobody else, and vice versa. But anyways, what you need to do is you need to find robust HG. It's going to have .example on the end here. If you can't see the folder or the extension rather of whatever files you have to enable it. So just go to the start bar, type folder options, and once you're in there under view, you can under show hidden files and folders, and then also display or hide. Uncheck this one. Uncheck hide extensions for known file types, and that's going to give you the ability to right click and rename the file type. So what we'll do is just take example off here. Okay, and that's going to make it so that we can edit it. Now I have it set up so that double click opens with Notepad++, but you could right click and click it like this. Alright, so now that we have the robust hg.ini open, we're going to go ahead and set these parameters here. This here is the only area that you really need to set now with this version of Opensim to make everything work. Before you had to go and change variables throughout the entire ini file, they streamlined everything, which I applaud you guys that did this hard work, and it made all this easier for everybody. So anyways, let's go. I made my own A record, or FQDM, we call it, for the server for this specific tutorial, and we're going to input that now. So it's tutorial.skylifegrid.com. So that will resolve to this IP address. All right. Now, seeing as I already have a grid running on this port, we're going to go and change this. So what we're going to use is, let's say 5005. and then this will be 5006, just because. But normally you wouldn't have to change that. This is only because we have multiple grids running on the same server. So that's the first step. The next step would be to go down here and scan. We just got to scan, make sure. Alright, so if you want offline messages to work, which most people would, you need to uncomment this. If you want V2 groups to work, you need to uncomment that. Okay? And you also need to uncomment this. Hypergrid group connector. You also need to uncomment this if you want profile services to work. See, all this is all disabled by default in Opensim. So it's good to have this stuff. Alright, so here, normally we would have to define the network port, but it's constant private port, which is going to draw the info from up above, right here. So it's quite easy for everything to set up. So now let's keep going down. Now, under Hypergrid, we're going to go ahead and remove that and that to enable those. Now here is where you need to set your database information. Now I recommend setting this to the Diva data, but for now we're going to just leave it the way it is, because once we install Wi-Fi we'll change that after. So first off, we're going to go ahead and set the parameters here. So I've already created a database in MariaDB. For those that don't know how to do it, or I don't know if I have, let's check. You need to log into your MySQL with the right password. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and create a new database here. We're going to call it tutorial. Now, I already made a user that allows access to this specifically just for this tutorial, and once I'm finished with them, you betcha that user and password is no longer going to be working for you griefers that would like to destroy my work. So, continue on. So we're going to go tutorial is the database name, and the user that I've created is tutorial, or no, it's not. It's called your grid, and the password is your grid. You can set these when you install your MySQL. It asks you for all the information you need, but you can always change your password whenever you want, or make new users and restrict their permissions. But this is a simple way. So we've got this info here, so that's set. Continue on. This is where you set your default landing region. So let's say my region is called your grid welcome with a capital, your underscore grid underscore welcome. You need to put spaces in between each word for it to read it all. So it's going to assume now when this grid starts up into Robust, it's going to say, hey, this is the default region, fallback region, or whatever you want to choose it for. I wouldn't set the fallback region as the same as the default region, because if it goes down, there's nothing to fall back on. So you could easily just put a space and then cut this section here, and then you could go your grid welcome to, and then that'd be the fallback. But for now, we'll just let that set like that. Okay. So we don't have to set that because it's already set up above. Here, if you have a Vivox account, you would just cut and paste it anywhere inside of here and save it. That'll allow voice in your grid. Continue on down. Alright, so here we'll set this area up after. This is for the currency of what we want. You can actually set it now if you want. So this is what your currency name would be. So let's say we want YG dollars because it's your grid. So we'll put that in there. So that's going to call the in-world currency YGs. You can set classified fee here. This is where you set your welcome message. So when people log in, be like, welcome to my grid. Thank you. And then that will be shown on login. You can always set that remotely from the console later, but it is up to you. Okay, so now we're going to continue down. Here's where you would submit your search URL. I might show you how to set up with Opensim in-world search. It's kind of nice, but we're going to leave that for now. Okay, we're going to keep going down. This is where you would ban certain clients or IP addresses from entering your region or your grid. Okay, here is where you set your grid name. So we're going to call this your grid. And we're going to call the grid Nick YG. YG. Okay. There we go. These here are important to set because they, when people click on certain things in your viewers, it directs them to certain web pages. So, and this is for your welcome screen. I would set this as well. This will show in the splash. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to use where I have installed a splash. Now, you can use any web page for a splash, but I'm going to just use login.skylifegrid.com/beta. That's my splash. You can use whatever you like. So this is where you would set your economy URL. We're going to have to do that later because we haven't got all the info set up for our money server yet. This is where you would put it about. I would put here just a link to your website, kind of. Let's check the time.